Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining Tock's Fireside Chat. We are excited to have all of you joining us. My name's Jenny Wrinkle. I'm part of Tock's account management team, and I wanted to share the purpose of today's chat, which is to share how to sell more for the holiday season. Tock is a sales engine, so it allows you to sell holiday experiences next to your everyday offerings. It also allows you to upsell guests. So that could be with menu enhancements, with wine pairings, or even merchandise. So today's panelists are experts at maximizing sales during the holidays, and we're excited to share their insights with you. So in addition to learning how to maximize holiday sales, we'll also review what works best, when to start selling, and how to effectively market. Before we get into introductions, I just want to draw attention to the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you have questions, please put them there, and we will take time to answer them after and towards the end. All right, let's meet our panelists. So today we have Gavin Kaysen joining us, chef and owner of Soigné Hospitality in Minneapolis. We also have Sophia Hussain, director of operations at Trust Restaurant Group in San Diego. Carolyn Satlow, Chief of Staff at Vetri Group in Philadelphia. And then our moderator for today is Nick Kokonas, CEO of Tock and co-founder of the Alinea Group. Nick, I will let you take it from here.
Okay, thanks very much, Jenny. Okay, so first off, as I said to the panelists right before we met, I don't really love this format at all because I've sat on the other side of it. And there's a formality where the moderator asks, Sophia, tell me all about how you did X, Y, Z. And it's all premeditated and pre-prompt, no one can talk. Instead, what I want to do is just have a conversation. We're all, and all the folks on the call, we're all peers. We all either own or work in restaurants, and revenue cures all ills. It's been a very difficult few years for everybody, to say the least, but that difficulty hasn't really gone away. Because there are other new challenges at this point, whether that be rising expenses and costs through inflation, whether that be wage gaps and employment gaps that we're seriously all experiencing. I mean, I hear from restaurants every week that continues to be a super challenge. And in the meantime, the one thing we can control is what we put up for sale, how we sell it, how customers find it, and if they buy it, that solves a lot of problems. So I just want to have an open conversation about what's worked in the past, what hasn't worked, what timing looks like, and what we can do to really help each other, do better. So just opening it up generally to start, what's worked well? What have you done in the past that stands out in your mind where you went, wow, like I put this up and it outperformed what I thought, or it had an impact on what we were doing operations wise?
Who's going to go first? Who's going to bite?
I'm not going to call it anyone because I hate the format. So someone's got to jump in.
All right, I'll jump in. So we did a when everything kind of kicked off, especially through COVID, we had to figure out a way. We had to figure out a way to communicate with our guests. And Nick, you and I have had this conversation at length offline too, but it's always been very hard for the restaurant profession to adapt technology and the forward thinking of technology. So, what we did right off the bat is we started to do these online cooking forum classes, and we would sell them through Tock. And the first class that we did had about 100 to 150 participants. And I went to a friend's local butcher shop, and he said, oh my God, I sold out of all of our product because you were doing this cooking class. So I'm like, wait a minute, if you're selling out of the product, that means I can sell the product. And so the second class had over 1,000 people. The third class had over 1,500 people. And we just kept selling, multiple 200 to 250 kits of food and wine. And it was all through the idea of Tock and the fact that people could go on very easily onto their phone or onto their computer. They could purchase the experience. The ticket's done, everything's done, and then you just go and you sell it. So, I mean, that was something that worked right away, and actually has continued to work, and we were able to flip that and turn that into a couple of businesses.
Yeah, I think the flexibility of Tock, is what makes it really unique and is really helpful on our end, because when you're selling something, whether it's food or an experience, it's so easy as the person behind the scenes to dedicate something and make it very obvious to our guest what you are getting yourself into, whether it's a special dinner, a menu, or like Gavin said, you're selling food and wine for people to make at home, these different experiences.
Most definitely. I mean, the customization of Tock and how it grows, I think, is the biggest selling point for us. You know, I think we all came from our old lands of Open Table, but where Tock has grown and constantly taking the feedback is where we continue to excel with the changes that are constantly needed, whether it's a package, whether it's an experience, whether it's just a regular reservation, and how we need to customize our table formats and how we continue to make it even better. So that's the best part in my eyes.
Thank you. One of the things I say to restaurants and to our employees here at Tock is people can't buy what you're not selling. Mm-hmm. And that sounds really, really, really dumb. But for years and years and years, restaurants didn't really realize what they were selling. They thought that they were selling a reservation that people just showed up to. And then they had people on site selling a tasting menu or a counter seat or whatever it may be. But really, as Jenny said at the beginning, ideally, the system we're building is a sales tool. And so whether that be a class that you're selling or, a Thanksgiving to-go dinner that I know we've done at the Alinea group with great success, because most people eat at home during Thanksgiving. Not everyone, certainly, but what is the process that your group has used respectively to decide what it is that you try and what's worked and what hasn't worked? Like I have some examples of things that I put up that I thought would work, and our team thought would work, and they fell flat. They kind of cost us nothing because it's fast to put up and see if it sells. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for us is staying humble and knowing that some things we're gonna knock it out of the park, and some events that we try to sell or experiences, they don't work, and it's totally okay. Then we know our audience more. We know what people are looking for. So I think it's, you mentioned this before, but it's kind of the failures really help you be a lot more successful in the end.
Yeah, and it's like people say that, but it always doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. So you have to kind of get your team to go like, let's try to sell this. And if no one buys it, it took us like 30 seconds to put it up.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like we'll be a little disappointed sometimes. We have this great idea. We have these big meetings at the restaurants. And when we have this beautiful idea for a dinner, like a guest chef dinner, for instance, and it just doesn't sell. And sometimes it's the time of year. Sometimes it's the circumstances. Somebody doesn't know somebody else. It really just depends. So we did a ton of trial and error to figure out what was working. And I know with Vetri specifically, the wine dinners are a huge hit, regional wine dinners. It's educational. We have a lot of people that, aren't in the industry that just truly love wine and love learning more about it. So those tend to really work for us. And really any kind of bigger, more extravagant event, which those are the ones we feel most nervous about because they're a higher ticket price, they're more involved. Those ones sell instantly, which is always so nice and humbling for us.
We definitely
revenue. Yeah. That's where the revenue, those are the events that get the incremental revenue,
Mm-hmm.
There's the beauty of also the packages, right? With Tock, you touched on Thanksgiving for a moment, but our group, I think every group learned a lot during COVID of how you pivot, what you change, what are the people looking for, and figuring out a way with your team of what do you want as well, and what would make you comfortable will eventually allow for us to target our clientele. It's about giving the people what they want at the same time, but finding the best way to do it. So packages as well for Thanksgiving alone has been our spark, and something I don't think we'll ever leave from as well, even post-COVID.
Yeah, we've stayed in that lane of pre-selling all the holiday packages, Thanksgiving, Christmas, etc. But like we did Mother's Day, and that kind of fell flat.
Yeah.
We've done some other holidays that during COVID, they succeeded, but then they sort of fell flat after COVID because people really, I think that they recognized being in a restaurant for those holidays was actually part of that holiday and part of their tradition. And so I think that, whatever you're doing in your restaurant and within your community, you still have to listen to your guests, and you still have to listen to what is it that they want, and then how can you allow them to optimize what it is that they want even more so. The beauty of being able to buy something behind a screen is nobody really sees what you're buying. So there's no shame associated with buying too much or buying too little when you're behind the screen and nobody can see you. When you're in a restaurant, it can be a little bit different. If you're at a table for 6 and you're buying the dinner, you might want to buy a nicer bottle of wine because you want to sort of show who you are within that group of 5 or 6 people. But you don't have to do any of that, but give the guests the opportunity to at least optimize and maximize what it is that they want to purchase, and and give them the options.
I think that touches on add-ons, right, Chef? Can you tell us a little bit about add-ons and what that's done for you?
It's huge. So, whenever we do any holiday experience, whether it's holidays, whether it's Synergy series, whether, whatever the event is, you always have the add-ons, whether it's wine, whether it's our cookbook that we just released or merchandise, but you just give the guests the opportunity to be able to add on and purchase that as being part of their experience. Ultimately we can sit in these great big creative meetings, but so often I feel like the more I sit in these larger meetings, the farther away we get from the genuine reality of what we're trying to give to the guests, which is true, beautiful hospitality. And, when you think about all of the restaurants we've ever worked in, like the most genuine, pure hospitality tends to be when you're sort of with the smallest and most focused group around you, because you see it every single day. And so you can put all these add-ons into the system and then let them go after it. And if something doesn't work, just take it away and then add something else. Change it, be humble about it.
And it doesn't feel as salesy as like a server coming up and saying, hey, we've got a chef's tasting and a vegan version of that. And then we've got these 3 tiers of wine pairings and all of that. It feels, I think, more organic and more like what we do every day. And then when the guests show up, you can give that hospitality because the choices have often been made ahead, especially with the add-ons.
Yeah, at Demi, you can pick that you don't want to choose anything and you want to talk to our som when you get there, which is great. Then we sort of know where you are, and we can meet you there, which is also an important thing too, because in anything that has to do with technology, you need to be able to create that trust with the guest. And I think that's why the restaurant business has always stayed so far away from technologies, because we can't see and feel and understand what they're going through. And so it's all about trust.
And when, for the group, like when do you feel like it's optimal to get like these holiday packages on for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, which are the big ones coming right up?
Mm-hmm. I think there's always been a rule of trying to be 4 to 6 weeks out of that actual holiday. We planned on launching Thanksgiving right after Halloween, but we ended up launching it 2 weeks ago, or just about a week ago. We already have 25 sold, just because the amount of inquiries that people are planning ahead, inflation prices, not finding birds alone for Thanksgiving, bird flu, et cetera. Just being able to get your hands on the item. I think people are starting to look forward to these events and are forward thinking at this point. So we broke our rule and we decided to put it out there as soon as we could. And
it costs nothing to put it out early. I don't think people get tired of looking at it. I think it's the opposite. It's the old rule of advertising. People have to see it 4 or 5 times before they finally get it in their head 2 weeks ahead. Oh, I have 14 people coming over. I might order the carry out of the sides and the wine or whatever it may be.
Also, that
it's also funny how late you get those. It's true. You can put these orders up like 6 weeks in advance, and no matter what, without fail, the 10 days before you close the ordering, it's like this frenzy of like, oh my God, what are we going to do for Thanksgiving? What are we going to do for this holiday? We need to figure out it. We need to order it. And the truth of the matter is that the last couple of years has trained people to do that. We've trained ourselves, and we've trained our guests to understand that we have an opportunity for them to eat our food for their tradition. And it's quite an honor to be able to be on somebody else's table, or to be in a lot of tables around our community. I feel super blessed that we can put our food on all their tables, and see them eat it for their Thanksgiving or whatever the holiday is.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do. We haven't done really any food to go sales since the pandemic. But one thing that we do is sell our panettone that our chef Mark Vetri is very much obsessed with. And that is something that it's in such a high demand that we have the flexibility to post. We can post on social media, 2 days before, we have 50 panettone. We're selling them. Here are the 2 days you can pick them up. And it goes so quickly. But then we have other events like our truffle dinner that we do every year. And that is something that I make sure we get out at the very least 4 weeks in advance, because it's a big ticket price. People want to plan ahead for it. They want to make sure if they have friends in town, anything like that. And it's, if I were them, I would want to take off the next day too, to sleep with my full belly. But yeah, I think it's all about being able to be adaptable and understanding your audience, as everyone said. Yeah, panettone. It's big in our world right now.
And how are you all promoting this? I assume social media, email lists, like what are you doing to, people can't buy what you're not selling, but they also can't buy what they don't know about. Like they have to know the look.
Yeah,
what are you doing
email
to
and
get it in their
social.
mind?
Yeah, newsletters through email, social media, all of that stuff. We do check presenters as well in the restaurant, which is old school.
Yeah,
But
it
at the end
works.
of the day, it works. Like there are still people that don't read social media or open up their email because they see it and it's a spam, and I get it. And maybe they're a bottle of wine in for dinner and they see that we're selling Thanksgiving and they're like, maybe we should just go ahead and do this.
That's a really good point, because I was going to say, like, of course it's search, social, and email. And in Tock, you can download to, your entire email list of all your previous customers, even the people on the wait list, and have access to that. And that's something that we do literally every week this time of year as the Alinea group. But don't overlook, to Gavin's point, like the people who are in-house. It is so easy to add a book or a to-go, or even wine at the time that they're there, or on checkout. Like, hey, do you want to take a bottle of wine with you for your holiday meal as part of the checkout add-on when they're booking the reservation? So it's funny, like all the digital means are the things that I keep pushing, but to Gavin's point, it's not that hard to have a note in the check presenter saying, hey, this is what we're doing for the holidays. And that's something that we've begun doing as well with everybody who comes through our doors.
It's like I was at a hockey game the other night, and it's amazing. If you just like go to any major sports venue, everybody who's watching the game, hockey, baseball, basketball, whatever, football, you can get everything on your phone delivered to your seat. But there's still somebody walking up and down the aisle, that poor person carrying like a 70-pound bucket of beer and spitting out who wants beer. And they're still selling all of that beer. And they're still selling things digitally on a phone. And so my point is like, you have to be able to understand that you have to adapt to everybody that you have inside of your space. And some people just want to see the tangible person selling that beer and have eye contact with them. Then be that person. And some don't want to be spoken to at all. Be that person too.
Yeah, and it all comes back to hospitality too, right? Like, I think about the email blast that we send out, the social media posts. We have our chef share it, who has a ton of followers. And then there's people that, we take these meticulous notes on each of our guests. And we know that I'm going to call John Smith because I know he doesn't look at his email. He definitely doesn't have social media, but he loves the panettone. So I'm going to call him and give him the heads up before everybody else because it's so special to him. And
so that's how I get a panettone.
Yeah.
I just want to know how to get a panettone at this point.
I think you have an in.
So I think you need to make more panettone. It sounds like you're selling out. So here's a little shift. One of the things that we started doing at the Alinea Group 12 years ago now is with Next, we started taking prepayment for the restaurant. And I remember having conversations with a lot of different peers and chefs and restaurant owners over the last 12 years. And almost everyone started out from the place of, well, I'm sure that works fine for you, but I could never do that. I could never take a deposit to cut my no-show rate, or I could never take prepayment, even on New Year's Eve. How have you introduced that to your guests? When do you use it? When do you not use it? What's the success rate been?
So we use it at Demi every day. I mean, that's part of our model there. So we take the prepayment and we sell the tickets to the reservation on a monthly basis, and we've been doing that for over 3 years since that restaurant opened. And then at Spoon and Stable, we do it for events, whether it's Synergy Series or if it's takeaway events, wine dinners, etc. So we do all the prepayment for that. I mean, Nick, you know this better than anybody. I mean, I fought you on this for years before I.
Well, that's why I said I was waiting for you to say that,
Yeah.
because we definitely, I would get it on with Gavin, who I look up to as someone who's one of those rare chefs who also loves business. He loves both. And I would just go like, dude, try it because it's going to work.
And I would not try it.
Correct. Yes.
No, but and I think a lot of my, I was reluctant because I was still in a mentality of like, does it take away from the idea of hospitality, and does it take away from the idea of what we're trying to do? But at the end of the day, what I've realized is that if I take the monetary idea of money out of it, I actually have more control now as the owner, being able to sell them tickets ahead of time and being able to curate their experience. And I can deliver a higher level of hospitality now than I ever could before. And when I flipped that script and I understood it that way, it made me feel more powerful in that position, that I can now deliver the hospitality that I've always wanted to, in a way that is really meaningful and incredibly genuine, versus before I look back on it now and it's like it wasn't that. So I understand the fear, because I've had this conversation with a lot of people. I mean, I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where most people just fly over it and it's cold, and I get it. It is cold. I think it was like 20 degrees when I woke up this morning, which is unacceptable. But I was terrified of what that would mean for our guests, and I shouldn't have been. But I'm glad I questioned it, because I'm glad that I went through it for myself to understand it and really get a feel for it.
Sophia, has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, we just recently launched doing deposits for large parties. The no-show rate for us, the guaranteed arrival, every seat counts, of course, and being able to know that you're able to plan accordingly, especially with planning your books, getting that guaranteed deposit for their arrival is really important. It took us a while to figure that out, but now that we have, it's key. We also used it for all of our prepaid experiences for our chef's counter. At Fort Oak, we tried to do, or we will go back to doing a chef's dining experience and doing those prepaid deposits to allow us to also go through, find out who these people are. Just like Gavin just said, you're able to use Instagram and learn who people are and get a face picture and be able to anticipate their arrival so much better than not knowing who your guest is. Yes, a reservation is a reservation, but those details to guarantee them being a part of your experience is key. So a big adjustment, took us a moment, but the guaranteed arrival, especially for our team, knowing how, okay, their check average and changes because the deposit applies, and how do you move forward and make sure your team is still taken care of? Those things are key.
That leaves one. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we took credit card information for every reservation at Vetri in the before time, the open table time. So if people canceled within a certain time period or didn't show up for their reservation, then they would be charged. But Tock has made that so much easier. So now it's not just this conversation. People go online, they read our policy, they put down the deposit, and it's honestly less of a conversation because it's right there. I mean, obviously people still call and make reservations and we explain the same thing, but the online platform, which so many people are moving towards making their reservations,
I also
online.
have to say, and that's an important point you brought up, like charging people for a violation of policy feels like a penalty. And they tend to push back against that psychologically. I think we all do. Like, but I had a good reason not to show up, or man, I just completely forgot because I was really busy. And you're penalizing me for not showing up at your restaurant. Whereas if they put down even a small deposit, $5 or $10 a person, not only do they tend to show up, they tend to be more polite, and we can give it back to them.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Sorry.
No, you're okay. We have an opportunity then to be magnanimous instead of to be penal.
Yeah.
And I in my experience, like almost every restaurant on Tock, if a person has a real excuse not to show up and they call you 2 days ahead, they're going to give the money back, of course. And this is what I've explained to the press a million times. Most restaurant owners want to be hospitable. What we don't want is an 8-top no showing completely, and then having to call and fight the credit card company or fight the customer, which is even worse, saying, no, we made that food, we prepped it. And so that slight psychological shift is everything on the consumer side.
Well, it's a psychological shift for us too, right? We're hospitality people. We're people pleasers at the end of the day. So when we're making somebody not feel good, which we're in the business of making people feel good, it hurts us too. So, that change was hard for us too. We had a lot of back and forth, but it's so much better now. It's clearer. The guest understands. And like you said, we're understanding. You can call us 2 hours before your reservation. And if I don't know, anything, car accident, you're sick all of a sudden, we're going to give you your deposit back.
Right.
We're nice people.
It also helps.
And to a point. No, I'm just kidding. That's been the crux, and one of the most interesting things about watching the arc of this is that as long as we have vaulted credit cards that are secure, they're more secure than putting it in a field on open table or writing notes down. And as long as the friction on the consumer side isn't there, like they've made a reservation once at any restaurant using Tock, then they hit the button again and it's seamless and quick. It's kind of like an Amazon one-click. It's very easy to do. And for us, I know it's completely changed the way we've done business because it makes a more predictable day. You have things like food waste starting to get lower, and it has all these cascading positive effects once as you say, the people who are showing up and you can provide them with the hospitality that you want to provide. So what are you going to do staffing wise? Like, we got a busy 3 months. I don't know, in Chicago, I assume this is probably true, not in San Diego, but everywhere else. Come January.
Hey, the weather's playing with us lately.
Brutal here. It's brutal in Minnesota. It's just okay in Philly. So are you staffing differently during this big push?
If you have the staffing, I think is the first question. I mean, we're still coming out of this world with people finding that work ethic and the passion to be in hospitality and the desire to be people pleasers and to care rather than have this as a side job. I think that is uniform across our community as hospitality in general. Staffing where you can, absolutely. But I think also to kick back to the deposits, knowing that you have those 2 8-tops coming in at 9:30 on a Saturday night allows for you to staff accordingly rather than not knowing if they're showing up. And if the demand is coming, it's not about if, it's about when, and the beauty of controlling it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, our staffing now, thankfully, we're pretty consistent in terms of our business, so we're able to keep the staff as we have that and maybe go up a little bit during the holidays, but not too much. It's, again, I think a lot of it for us here is that, well, we very much embrace the cold, which is why we live here. So we're not afraid of what it's like outside, and that's the beauty of why we are here. The restaurants are busy. Then it snows. Like we still valet park, snowmobiles even when it snows 20 inches. It's insane. But also,
wait, I need to pause there. You valet park snowmobiles? Is that a true thing?
Yeah. We had a snowstorm once. I was coming back from Mexico City, for Bocuse d'Or, and we had a huge snowstorm, and it snowed like 21 inches in I don't know how many hours, and we had to close one restaurant because it was too much snow. They had gotten more, and then I called Spoon and Stable and I said, well, how many reservations do you have? They said, we have 212. I said, you have 212 reservations despite 21 inches of snow? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, stay open. We ended up doing like 270, and we valeted 3 snowmobiles and some cross-country skis.
Amazing. Okay, has nothing to do with the point, but man, that's amazing.
I know.
Okay, so last question from me before we get to other questions. What's the yummy? Well, I already know your answer, Carolyn. It's gonna be panettone. But what is the yummiest, most amazing thing that you're offering for Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve? Like, what's the package, the killer package that everyone wants to buy?
I mean, she wins for panettone, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Are we all going to start selling panettones?
I'm just going to sell 55 of them. If she sells 50, I'm going to sell 5 more, and then maybe I could just at least get like a little bit more than that.
No, but seriously, what packages are you putting together for the holidays?
Our Thanksgiving package, it's quite a traditional package, but then we have the Belcourt Bakery across the street, so you can add a lot of things onto it. And you can go over there and you can buy a bunch of stuff through the online platform on it across the street, whether it's the molasses cookies, which are a huge hit, the Kugimon swirls, which are amazing, or the cardamom buns and things like that. So, you can get Thanksgiving from us. You can walk across the street. You can get the pre and post game pastries to just make sure that you really can't get up off of the couch for the next 3 days, and we're happy to help.
How about are you doing anything for Christmas, New Year's?
Christmas we don't do, and New Year's we do. Last year for New Year's we did like a tasting menu experience. It was a full like box of things, and you'd pull it apart, and all of the dishes that were actually holding the food turned into a plating mechanism for the food as well, and then we would show you how to do it. It was super fun.
Ah, that's cool. How about you, Sophia? What's yummy for the holidays?
So for Thanksgiving, obviously we've talked about that. That's from our Italian concept, Cardellino. We also have a butcher shop called the Wise Ox, and we're doing a beautiful ox box. We do a monthly meat subscription, but for the holidays, we're doing something that you can plan for giving gifts away. And it's a customized chef's experience of, what to cook, when to cook it, and how to give it for your friends with merch and a bunch of goodies inside of it. So that's our big push of excitement for giveaways for the holidays.
And anything other than panettone?
We're not selling any items to go, but I would say our most exciting event coming up is the truffle dinner. It's all throughout the restaurant. It's a beautiful 10-course menu, all truffles, and it's very extravagant.
And it sells out every year?
It does, yeah. We've done some experimenting with it where we did it, it's sold out one year. So the next year we said, let's do it 2 nights in a row.
2 nights, yeah, right.
Yeah. And, one night was sold out. The next night was, 75%. Still great. But then, especially after the pandemic, we came back and we were like, let's just do 1 night and make it so unbelievably amazing.
Did you increase your price at that point?
Last year we did, yeah. Truffles were also really expensive last year.
Truffles are really expensive this year, yeah, just like everything else. Yeah. I will say that we do Thanksgiving now for the Alinea group, and we now do it at such scale that we close all of our restaurants for the week. So what we can do by doing that is we can give our team essentially Thursday through Sunday off with their families. But on Tuesday, Wednesday, we do about 4 tons of green beans, like hundreds and hundreds of gallons, to the point where we rent a cold storage facility to store it all. It's like football fields of Thanksgiving. Wow. And now we're at the point where, I thought last year, well, it's not going to be as big as during COVID, peak COVID. Sad as that may sound, but when everyone's locked in, they're not going to restaurants, they're not shopping as much. And now, thankfully, one of my team members was like, I bought 750 turkeys already. Ooh. And so we're going to have to scale. And I went, we're going to be eating a lot of turkey for staff meal. And the answer was, we could have sold 1,000.
For sure.
And so I will say that like every time that we offer more and we market more and we challenge our team that like, hey, here's the benefit. Like we get a whole week's worth of revenue in 2 days and we can all go home and spend it with our families. That vision to scale like a very simple, awesome meal that people are going to have at home really worked. So any questions from the crowd here? Ashley, what do we got?
Yeah, we
Oh,
do
sorry.
have quite a few questions. Hi, I'm back again. So I'm going to read off the questions. I do think that, they're definitely very powerful. There's a couple for the holidays that I wanted to push up to the front. So the first question is, how many weeks in advance do you get your holiday experiences live? Sophia, I know you mentioned that you already have Thanksgiving live and that was pushed 2 weeks ago. Carolyn or Gavin, do you have anything to add to that?
We put Thanksgiving out as well 2 weeks ago. It was about 10 days ago. So, we sold a bunch right away on the first newsletter, and we will continue to sell more.
And roughly 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the event.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and my attitude on that is put it up like Labor Day ends, start hanging the Christmas stuff because it's down there at the bottom and we just keep moving it up towards the top as the event comes, because that way it gets in people's heads.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. How do you determine the price point for the holidays? Carolyn, can you speak on this one?
That's a tough question. I mean, the price point for, I feel like these questions are easier for me because everything's kind of set in stone. We're a tasting menu only. It depends on the year and the product and what we're selling exactly. So we really base it off of the year before. And either we keep it the same or we raise the price. And I mean, usually we raise the price. I mean, everything's a little bit more expensive. So it also depends on when we're speaking about, dining experiences, whether gratuity is included, if wine is included, all of that factors into it. So, we base it off of the previous years. And if it's something that's new, it's an experiment. We have to see what works, what people are willing to buy and how much they're willing to spend on a product.
Do you ever just see everyone buying it and just go like, raise it $10?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we do a lot of like, why did I do this earlier? Because, you get nervous about certain things. Like, is it going to sell? Is somebody going to spend $75 on a big piece of bread? You just don't know. And then it sells and you're shocked.
That's a good shock though.
A great shock.
Yeah. I will say we were talking earlier about experiments, pricing experiments are just as valid. Like we've literally put up things like 10 of them at this price, 10 at that price, consecutive days, see if there's any difference. I know we're doing an event with Gavin for his books, and we kind of figured it's a cookbook people are going to want to eat, but we'll also put it up at the aviary as well and see if people just want to drink and do a meet and greet. And we were talking about success and things that didn't work. The eating portion of it with him and his team coming down and cooking at Royster sold out instantly. The one at the aviary did not. Different price point, drinks and cocktails instead of food. They want to see his food and get the book and meet him. We just moved those people over and added another seating. So it's not hard. And that second seating, we raised the price. Because why? Well, clearly people want it. So there's nothing wrong with experimenting on price, just like you're experimenting on experiences.
We talk about that all the time too. We've been toying with this idea of when you go to a concert, right? You pay more money to sit closer to the band and have that different experience. So it's a conversation that I've been having with people outside of our restaurant group too. Does it cost more when you're dining at prime time?
It does for us.
Does for us as well, for 12 years.
Yeah.
We charge more on Fridays and Saturdays than we do on Wednesdays and Sundays. Wednesday and Sunday are the same. Thursday is a different price. Friday and Saturday is a different price. And you know what's amazing? Friday and Saturdays are still the first nights to sell out the fastest.
Totally. Yeah, we've been talking about it, thinking about it, but again, change is scary and we're people pleasers. So making a big jump is always hard, but it's definitely in the conversation right now.
But that's a really valuable point, that the change is scary, because I felt the same way before we did that. And I actually talked to Nick about it before we did it too. And, we didn't adjust the prices that much where it would be so obvious to the point of like, wow, what are you doing to me on Fridays and Saturdays? We just took our time with it until we felt good, until the guests felt right about it too. So I agree, but we certainly have been doing it, and it's been great to see that it works.
Jenny, what else we have?
We've got more. For a successful holiday event or to-go package, can you walk us through the process, start to end, and the execution? What are your tactics? Sophia, can you speak to this with your Thanksgiving to-go package?
Yeah, there's a lot of planning involved, that's for sure. It takes an army to do so. You definitely can't do it alone, but your team is a big part of that. My team specifically, our entire executive team begins from the planning, the detailed, obviously our chef creates the entire experience alone. Chef Brad has been a driver for this force, to say the least, but being able to come up with the cost, figuring out your margins, what people are actually going to spend, and then being able to push the bill just a little bit to see what you can gain, but also what's still approachable. From planning to execution to figuring out dates and times and deliveries and all the details in between, it definitely is a lot of moving parts, but the fun of being able to provide something that is an experience and a well-executed package, that is just talking about a takeout, then you shift your mind to how you actually execute a dinner experience and every moving part between the allergies that pop up on you very last minute because nobody reads the menu or decide that they have a nut allergy until they sit down, and those things that you continuously pivot and stay on your toes for. It takes a lot of planning and education and training, but there's a length and plan at all times.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we might have time for one more question. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that one. To restaurateurs who have had success selling experiences and packages through Tock, do these also tend to bring in first-time customers, or is it mainly just about getting existing customers to spend more?
It's a great question. We see a lot of the first-time guests, and I think a lot of that for us is because they'll want to experience the meal at Demi, and so it'll be their first time eating there. And in order to be a part of that experience, you have to go through the whole process of purchasing your ticket ahead of time. So then when they receive an email for a holiday or for a special event, and they see that on our newsletter and it's part of the experience, they just have to click the ticket, buy tickets. They already understand and kind of are trained to know that that's the way to get to that experience.
I will say that one of the cool things about seeing a lot of data across the whole country is that one of the myths of hospitality is that it's all about your regulars.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have recency bias and we love our regulars and we love seeing the same people. And so in our brains as humans, we recognize them and we go, wow, these are our most important customers. And in many hospitality aspects, they are. But across all of restaurants, when we look at how frequently someone dines within 6 months at all the restaurants across Tock, the answer is something like 7.5% of people dine at the same restaurant twice within a 6-month period. So if someone dines 5 times at your restaurant across a year, they're considered like a regular, right? But people are we're all trading each other's customers with each other. And I mean that across the whole country. People that love great food and great experiences dine all across their cities and their towns and the country. And so a lot of our customers, when they go to Philadelphia or San Diego or Minneapolis, are going to dine at these folks' places, and they'll be new there. So Tock is always working to try to get new customers in And then, of course, like, we have this notion that everyone's a regular, but the reality is we're constantly chasing new clients, and that's fine. That's a good thing.
As long as you're treating your first timers like regulars, then you're in a good spot. That's the
right.
goal, to make sure that they feel like they've been here 5 times before.
That's right. Well, I think that's an awesome place to finish with a note of hospitality like that. I want to thank all of you for doing this, and everyone visiting with us. If you have any further questions, please feel free to email. I believe we're also going to have a recording of this that you can share. Jenny, anything I'm missing?
Yeah, so I was just going to say there were some questions we couldn't get to. We'll send email responses to you so we can make sure we answer those. And there will be a follow-up email with the recording to the Fireside chat, as well as next steps to get started. So if you have any questions, you'll have access to all of us.
I want to get a fire next time. We need a fire for each of us.
Sit by a fireside experience.
Awesome. Thank you all very much. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.